Hello! We are in the RV kitchen today because we are talking about the RV oven. Our previous RV did not have an oven, so we have been RV oven owners for about 2 months, 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting the hang of it. I like to bake, and I've done some baking. I did some cupcakes, they were okay. But we really want to get a handle on our oven and just kind of unlock its secrets. And while we do that, thought we'd bring you along so you can do the same thing. I am in a pretty lucky position because I live with an actual legitimate oven expert.
Yeah, we're going to be bringing him on shortly. Oven expert. No, I'm just
Teddy!
kidding. So, I actually work in industrial oven design, making ovens and fryers that fill the grocery stores primarily, and some restaurants and food service and things like that.
If you've seen it in the frozen section, either that particular actual item or something very, very, very similar, has come across his desk.
Yeah, we do all sorts of prepared foods and snacks, so TV dinners, things like that. So I don't work in anything near this scale, but I do have some oven expertise that I think is going to help us to
What
figure...
do you mean? Most of your ovens are about the size of our RV.
That's true. Most of the equipment I work on is the size of a bus or an RV or yeah, that's right. But my background is in engineering, so I have some background in heating and ovens and whatnot. So we're going to kind of try and use that here.
So you went to school to be an engineer.
Yeah, I'm a mechanical engineer.
Engineer for 5 years.
Yep.
And you have been working at a company whose literal job is to heat things.
Yep.
For 18 years?
17 years, yeah.
17 years. And you've moved up through the ranks from basic engineer to engineering manager.
Yep.
For a huge section of the company.
Yeah.
So he has a little bit of experience with the ovens.
Yep.
So
this is kind of what I do.
He is going to take us through some of the experiments that you would do on an oven for a client,
yeah,
a major big client.
But I'm going to try and keep it to things that you can do at home on your oven, so that you can kind of replicate our experiment. And you can learn on your oven. So these are not like the deep scientific or the deep engineering tests. These are more like just kind of the higher level things that you experiment with.
So you told me that there is like some kind of machine where you can put wires in different spots.
Yeah, I mean
and that's not accessible to the average Joe. But this test that we're doing today is completely accessible to anybody.
It's relatively inexpensive. And it teaches you a lot about your oven.
And it's something that you would actually do in the field in real life.
Yeah.
All right. Will you explain the test to us?
So we're really doing 3 steps today. We're doing 2 tests, but it takes 3 steps to do it. The first one's pretty straightforward, and all it really takes, pardon me, is an oven thermometer.
I picked that one up at Target for less than $10. I want to say it was about $7.
Yes.
So you could pick it up at a Walmart or a home goods store.
And I will tell you, just as you shouldn't trust the thermostat on your actual oven dial, a lot of RV ovens in particular don't even have temperatures. They just kind of have low, medium, high. Ours has temperatures, but don't trust them because they're not right. You also can't really trust these that much. They're all giving you guidelines, so they're giving you things to help you determine if something's like massively wrong, or if there's something that you need to troubleshoot. So, if you're aiming for 350 degrees in a home oven, generally the rule of thumb is that you're actually going to be anywhere from 300 to 400 depending on when it is. And that's probably the most extreme. If you have a new digital oven, you're probably within 25 degrees, so 325 to 375. But an older gas oven, you might be plus or minus 50 degrees, and that's just the way it is. And that's what you've been baking with your whole life if you've been baking at home. So you don't need to be perfectly accurate. The more accurate, the more consistent, everything's better, But this is a good tool to help you troubleshoot and to do our first experiment, which is to figure out how long it takes to preheat your oven. And preheating is important because even though that plus or minus 50 is there, there's a temperature variance that happens as you bake or cook. If you put cold food in a cold oven, it's going to really stretch out how long it takes for the oven to get hot. And it's going to make your cook times inconsistent. So if your recipe says 25 minutes, but you put cold food in a cold oven, that 25 minutes might actually take 30, 35, and you won't necessarily know. And so sometimes your food will be underdone. Sometimes you'll leave it in longer and it'll become overdone. You can dry out food that way. Texturally, you can mess things up. You know, if you're baking, figure out why you're having a hard time cooking something. Looking at your preheat is the first thing to do. So what we're going to do is real simple. We're going to put this little thermometer in the area where your food would go in the oven, not down on the bottom or on the top or in a corner. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the dead center of the oven. Center left to right, center front to back, center top to bottom. So the dead center of the oven. And what we're going to do today is we're going to watch this over time, and we're going to put it in before the oven even turns on. So we're going to put it into a cold oven, and we're going to light the oven, and we're going to start a timer, and then we're going to watch this little dial. And you're going to watch along with us, hopefully, unless we have camera problems.
Yeah.
And the idea is we're going to watch to see when this temperature stops going up. So whatever temperature we set it to, if it's I think we're going to set it to 375 on our oven. Because using this little guy, we found that setting our oven to 375, we get about 350 in practice. And most foods cook around 350. There's extremes, there's other things, but most foods cook around 350.
But I haven't been doing the scientific study, and so I get close to 350 in practice. I don't have it in the middle of the oven. I have it tucked off to the side, so maybe in the middle.
It might be a little bit different, but the most important thing is we want to look at how long does it take for the needles to stop moving, and then we're going to add about 5 minutes to that. And that's how long we're going to say that we should preheat our oven for. That way we don't have to do this little experiment every time we want to preheat our oven. We just, if we find out that it's, for instance, 15 minutes before the needle stops moving, we'll just say we have to preheat the oven for 20 minutes, which is kind of a rule of thumb that some RV YouTube videos have said. You should preheat your RV oven for about 20 minutes.
But everybody's oven is different because they have different insulation or different types of ovens, so this will give you a barometer on your oven.
Yeah.
Your oven is not our oven. It might be the same Furrion oven, but it's going to be in a completely different situation.
Yeah.
Even if you have the exact same RV as us, the person who installed your oven might have done the insulation differently.
Right.
Everybody is different.
Even the Furrion ovens come in different sizes, so they're going to heat differently. So yeah, this is a good thing to have. It's inexpensive, and it'll tell you a lot if you use it well.
And you can do this test with a propane oven, a convection oven.
Yeah, don't do it with a microwave oven.
Don't do it with a microwave.
If you have a microwave convection oven, you can totally do this, but make sure that your oven is on convection. Don't put this into a microwave oven on microwave setting.
You'll be getting a new oven.
Or at least you'll get to see a fireworks show before you realize what you've done.
Yeah.
So that's our first experiment.
Okay.
Okay. And we're setting this for 375 and starting our timer. Go to bed.
Oh, it's steaming up,
Yeah, it's
so you
steaming in
can't
there.
see the thermometer.
It'll get better as it heats up. Don't open it, please.
That's funny. I didn't think about that or factor that in. So the oven steamed up, which I guess I've seen done before, but I didn't really think about it when we set up our shot to see in at the thermometer. Can you tell me a little bit about why it did that?
So there's a couple things. The first is the propane actually makes water as it burns, so that water is sticking to the cold glass because the inside of the oven is cold right now. The lizard just walked by on the wall outside of our window.
Okay. Camping life.
Camp life. So that'll go away somewhere around the boiling temperature, if not before. So somewhere around 200 degrees, the glass will clear up again.
And we should clarify, all of these degrees are in Fahrenheit because we are in the United States.
That's true.
So, just thought we'd clarify for any international viewers.
Yep. 2, 1, 5 minutes.
So we are exactly at 200 degrees 5 minutes in. So while I'm sitting here waiting for the oven to heat up, I hear a weird little ticking noise. Is that a bomb? Is my oven going to explode?
Your oven is not exploding. Your oven is expanding much slower than an explosion. It's actually literally the inside of the oven growing and kind of groaning into itself as it expands from the heat. So the way an oven is built is there's a metal inner cavity. That's the kind of enameled surfaces that you see inside that you put your rack on, where your little heat plate is on the bottom. As it heats up, that metal grows. Hot metal is bigger than cold metal, so it's expanding and it's kind of creaking at all the interfaces and joints where they, connected pieces of metal together.
Okay. All right, that's 10 minutes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10 minutes.
We are right around 3:35, 3:40.
Okay.
So I feel like it's definitely slowing down.
It should, yeah. 12 minutes.
So it's 12 minutes and it's still right around 3:35, 3:40. It might have gone up a couple degrees in the last 2 minutes, but not much. So we're at 14 and it's still right around 3:40. So it's been 4 minutes and it hasn't gone up at all yet. This might be where it sits. Let's give it one more minute. So it's 5 minutes past when it stopped moving. Yeah.
15 minutes.
So 15 minutes in and it is still at 3:40. So I would say that that's kind of where it's going to stay.
Yes.
So we left it in for 15 minutes, and it basically took 5 minutes to heat, and then 10 minutes to heat and 5 minutes to stay there.
Yeah. We really call that soaking out, or stabilizing whole time.
And that way you kind of know that it's there.
So it takes some time to heat the air that's in the oven, and then it takes some more time to heat the metal. So now we know that the air's been hot for 5 minutes, and the metal has been pretty much heating up for the last 5, or less than 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every time you open and close the oven, you're kind of relying on the heat that's reserved in the metal to bring it back to temperature quickly. Yeah.
Okay. And so it's sitting about 35 to 40 degrees under what our dial reads.
And that's not totally uncommon. Oven thermometers are kind of historically bad. Honestly, most gas oven thermometers, at least before digital ones, were pretty historically bad.
Okay.
They're mechanical mechanisms. They're not temperature sensors.
And that's why it's important to get to know your oven.
Yeah, that's why you want to do this test. So if a recipe for us calls for 350, we should be up around 385 or 390 on our dial to get in that range. And then we, of course, need to let it sit for about 15 minutes after we light it to get it evened out and up to preheat temperature.
Okay, and that's our oven.
That's our oven.
You have to learn your oven.
Yep.
So are we ready to move on to our bread test?
Yep. We got to figure out a recipe first.
Okay. So after we have preheated the oven and we figured out how long it takes to do that.
Yep. Then we need to do a prep step. So we need to kind of figure something out before we can do our second experiment. So the figuring out in our second experiment uses a very, very fancy engineering tool. Cheap white bread.
I got this at Target. It was on sale for $1.19. I'm sure that at Walmart or a cheap corner store you could get it cheaper. I got 7 loaves. He told me to get 9. They only had 7.
I do mean cheap white bread. Don't buy fancy this or that bread. I want the stuff that's got... If you can get the stuff with corn syrup, that's fine. If it's got sugar, that's fine. I want you to get the cheapest bread you can get. Sugar or corn syrup should be an ingredient. You do not want wheat bread. You want white bread because you need to look at the color as you bake it to use that as your guide. So the prep step that I talked about, the first step is we're going to figure out how long we bake a piece of white bread to get it to change color.
We are being very mean to the dog down here.
Yeah, there's a dog who wants some bread. They'll probably get some heels because we can't use those in our experiments. So I'm sorry about the food waste. I will say, if it makes you feel any better, there's probably only a couple pounds of flour here. So as far as food that gets wasted, it's not that much.
You can make croutons if you want.
I was going to say, if you want to avoid the waste, you can use it to make croutons. Obviously, Thanksgiving is coming up, so maybe you can use that in the stuffing. Certainly, you can do all sorts of things with dried bread. So do with that what you will. It's considering that if your oven doesn't work well and you ruin dinner, you're probably going to throw it out, and that's even more food waste than a few loaves of bread. Okay, so our first step is we need to figure out how long it's going to take us to bake the bread. So we're going to set our oven to a temperature, and we're probably going to start with the same 375 setting, which is about 350 actual. And we're going to see how long it takes for the bread to turn kind of evenly brown but not burnt. And we want that because we're then going to use slices of bread to figure out how the heat is spread throughout the oven. And kind of like I was talking about with the thermometer, we want to look at left, right, front, back, higher, and lower. So we really need to think of this thing as a cube and put slices of bread at different, in a controlled way at different places in this oven and measure based on that how the heat is distributed in the oven.
Our first step is to toast one piece of bread in the middle of the oven.
Yep.
So just smack dab in the middle.
Middle. Okay.
Alright, it's been 5 minutes, so we can check this bread.
Just take it out. Close the door. Put it on the white.
This is our piece of bread. We have it on the white so that we can compare it, because the background is variegated, so it just makes it easy to tell. This is the side that was touching the wires. It's a little brown up here. It's not that brown over here. And then on the top, it's still pretty white.
Okay. So we basically have two choices for how we can change a recipe. We can crank up the temperature, we can crank up the time. It looks like we might need to do both, but let's do them one at a time. So let's start by increasing our temperature.
Okay.
I'm going to set our dial to 425.
Okay. So we moved it up to 425 on the dial. It's not exactly what it is in the in the oven, but the dial says 425, and this is the part that was touching the rack, and this is the top, which is not that much different. Like you can see, this was the part that was touching the rack, and this is the parts that weren't. So that just our oven, the top just doesn't brown.
Yep.
Is this a good recipe, or should
I
we?
think that's a good recipe. If it gets darker than that, we'll definitely be able to see it.
Okay.
And if it's lighter than that, we'll definitely be able to see it, but it's not burnt. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a grid of bread, just like we did in the center. Now that we have a recipe for the center, we're going to make a grid. Hopefully we're going to do 3 across and 3 front to back, so 9 slices, 3 by 3. And then we're going to put that whole grid on the rack into the oven for the same time that we cooked that center piece of bread. That way we can map out in the center rack position how even the heat is left to right, front to back.
And so we did this recipe because we know the middle one should be about the color that our recipe was. So if it's darker, if a bread is darker than that,
it's hotter.
It's hotter. And if it's lighter than that, it's cooler in that section of the oven.
Right. And then we're going to do that same trial at the top rack setting and at the bottom rack setting.
So that we know if it's hotter in every single quadrant of the...
Yep. And then you'll be able to see top to bottom, left to right, front to back, where is the oven hot, where is the oven cool, and you can use that for how you bake, how you put things in the oven, and how you rotate them in the oven.
Okay.
The hope is dogs get their first treat.
Lucky dogs.
Okay, and then we go in.
Guys, gotta get back so you don't get burned. Come on, get out of the way. Says, I don't understand what you're telling me, and also there's treats here. Bread falls from the sky here.
Come on, guys, go to bed. Go to bed. Scout. Let's go. Go, 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 go. That's the position you've been in, right?
Yeah.
Tight jam.
So we almost had a little disaster, and the dog almost ate our experiment, but we got it. It's okay.
Uniformly white on top. I don't know what until we get down to the bottom.
Yeah, we expected that from our trials, to have it uniformly white on top. So now we just flip them over in their spots. to see what they are on bottom?
Yeah, basically.
So you have to remember that every single piece of bread here is mirrored.
So you can see it's a little bit dark in the center of basically over this area, if you will.
Oh, it's very dark in the back. And I think it's probably just because the oven is variable. It's hotter than it was during our test.
Yeah, it might be that we didn't preheat it long enough after we heated it up. Could be that, you know.
We've been using it for a while.
Like you said, yeah.
But it kind of gives you a heat map that it's hotter.
Very hot in the center and very cool on the two edges. Pretty uniform front to back.
Yeah.
And it's kind of coolest in the four corners.
Which is nice. It's not completely, totally wonky. It does seem like maybe it's a little warmer to the right because it's a little darker than over here.
Mm-hmm.
So our heat kind of skews a little to the right. But now we have to do the same test on the top and the bottom racks to find out if our heat is really like down low or up high or...
Yeah. I mean, the implication of all the tops of the bread being white is that it's cool on the top of the oven.
Yeah.
But we don't really know that until we measure the temperature at the top of the oven.
Yeah. All right, Teddy.
Move.
It smells burned. So we got burned bread probably, which you would expect from the bottom row. Still white.
Pale white on the top.
It's like the day I was born. Oh, toasty. Wow. There's such a big heat variation down there. Interesting. The front is hotter than the back. It seems like. Let's turn them all over and find out.
Yeah, the front is hotter than back. It's interesting. Okay.
We're going to turn them all over here to look at them all, like we did last time.
Okay, we can do that here.
And again, remember that they're all mirrored now once we flip them over.
The right and left look pretty similar. Maybe the left is a little darker than the right, but that might just be how we placed it, but they're pretty similar.
Yeah. Yeah, it might just be how we placed it, because I think last time the right was a little bit darker than the left. Or maybe not. I mean, it's a little darker.
Well, you're looking at the inside versus the outside also.
Oh, that's true. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, it seems to be fairly even front to back. But here you can also tell that the front was slightly darker than the back, just a little bit.
Yep.
So interesting. Our heat is kind of so far towards the front. So we will get this over onto here so we can see it in the same style pattern.
Yep.
And we will do this again on the top rack. We actually have 4 racks, but we never use the most top rack.
There's no space to use the top rack, so we're going to use our third rack, which we consider our top rack.
Yeah. Okay. Watch out, Teddy.
Okay, Ted. We're back. Oh, you're going to help me? Okay.
Don't burn your nose.
Don't burn yourself.
Oh. Alright, so as expected, super white. I think this bread got flipped over in the fall.
Oh, you're right. There's the 2 lines.
Yep.
So let's flip all these over.
So that's funny. In the first 2 trials, the front of the oven had more heat.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the heat is moving towards the back, or the back... Oh, because there's the vents up there. So up at the top, near the vents, it's hotter towards the back. Because the heat's being sucked that direction.
But we were talking before we started recording, is it going to be more even on the top?
Yeah.
And it seems like it is. It's cooler overall, right?
Yeah, it's cooler overall.
There's less intense heat. That's the center. Okay. So there's less intense heat, not just here, but even here is less heated.
Yeah, and if you look at, let's grab these two and compare them. The difference between these two, I think, is much bigger than the difference between these two.
So it is a bit more even.
So it's even, but it's still definitely hotter in the middle.
Yeah.
And these are from the center rack. Very interesting. So should we kind of clean this up and then have a debrief?
So what did you learn?
I learned that the heat, which makes sense, so the flame is at the bottom in one line.
In the center, yeah.
In the center line. And the heat kind of goes straight up from there. But also, it almost goes like at an angle backwards. So down low, it's hotter in the front.
Yeah, but it doesn't, like, you're making it sound like it's evenly heating the center, but it's actually spreading out.
Yeah.
And going back.
Yeah, so it's coming up, and as it goes up, it spreads out, but it never spreads out to completely.
Never gets completely even across the width. No.
Yeah, and then so it goes backwards. So towards the higher you go, the warmer it is in the back.
Mm-hmm.
The lower you go, the hotter it is in the front. It's always hotter in the center, which kind of all makes sense if you look at our oven. The heat source is down low in one line in the center. And the heat vent is at the back at the top. So the heat vent will bring the heat up to the back of the top.
Yeah, that's an important point for people who may not realize. If you have a propane oven, you have an exhaust in your oven that's coming out the top somewhere. So that's going to affect where the heat is concentrated in your oven. And doing this test will help you to identify that. And
I think what also surprised me was I didn't expect it to ever be hotter at the front, ever. So to have it be hotter at the front, at
near
the bottom,
yeah,
was surprising for me.
Mm-hmm.
What was also nice to know, but we didn't know if it was actually going to be the case, was that it's pretty darn even left to right.
Mm-hmm.
There's very little variation, which tells me if I'm cooking a casserole or baking cookies or something, I don't need to go in and do quarter turns. I need to do like a 180 degree turn.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Because if you just do a 180 degree turn, your far outsides are always going to be cool.
Oh, you're right. So if I do a quarter turn, it means that
you're going to put those sides along that heat zone, and even things out. Your center's always going to be getting cooked more if you just rotate. But by rotating, you take those cold areas and you put them in the hot zone.
And if I'm using a smaller casserole dish, I can also slide.
Exactly. That's so that if you need something to be very evenly heated, either because it involves the rise or something like that, I think that sliding is going to be the answer, because you want to get the far right and far left over that heat zone. So you have to shift your whole casserole to one side of the oven and then shift it to the other side, not just turn it around and around and around.
So like if I was to bake a loaf of bread, I might want to consider having my recipe so I have a smaller loaf that I can slide around so that it ends up being a better loaf of bread.
Yeah.
So we also learned, because the heat is low and hot, if I'm cooking something tall, like,
you're in trouble.
So this video is going live the Friday before Thanksgiving. So if someone is planning on cooking a turkey in this oven,
yeah,
what do they do? Have a raw turkey top?
Well, you don't want a raw turkey top, obviously. And you have some issues because you have some benefits and you have some issues. So the bottom of a turkey is your dark meat, and it can handle more heat. So most home ovens are heating the opposite way of an RV oven. They're kind of heating from the top down. And so there's a lot of effort spent trying to overcome overheating your turkey breast. You don't actually have that problem in an RV.
Oh, okay.
You're going to have it very easy to not overheat your turkey breast. If anything, it's going to take you longer to get your turkey breast cooked through because you're going to be getting so little heat on the top.
So if you master the RV oven, you could become the turkey master.
You could be the turkey master. If you like a roast turkey rather than barbecued or fried or some other way, or smoked, I should say, or fried, yeah, you could really, you got to get a turkey that's just the right size, and there are some videos out there of people who've done it. Obviously, that's not something that we're doing anytime soon. If you've seen some of our other videos, we're not eating any meat.
Yeah, if you've seen Vegan in Portland, you probably know we're not making a turkey.
Not making turkey this year. Although we weren't always vegan, and so this used to be something that I used to pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of viewers don't care what we eat. They just want to know how to cook their turkey, which is completely valid.
Totally.
So, if the turkey breast is not cooking, do they flip their turkey upside down?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly would solve it. If it's taking you forever and you have a V-shaped rack, flip your bird.
Okay. It might not be cute when you're done cooking it.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. In home ovens, in home ovens, that's actually a solution that a lot of people give, is to turn the turkey upside down in your home oven where you're heating. Again, it's the opposite of an RV oven, which is kind of from the top down, or at least the heat builds in the oven from the top down.
So if you're cooking something tall, if you have the option to flip it, you should flip it. If you have the option to prepare it in a way that the top doesn't need as much cooking as the bottom, that's good. Like, I made a shepherd's pie the other day, and the top did not get that golden brown, beautiful shepherd's pie color on top, but it was wet inside. Like, if the heat had been coming from the top, it would have burn the top and the insides wouldn't have cooked as well. So if you can make something like that, that's good.
Just as a kind of a teaser, I think we may have left saying we wanted to try some other stuff. That's true.
Yeah.
After seeing what we've seen, we want to try some more things. So there's
more videos to come.
More videos to come. We're not making them today, so don't expect them like next week or anything, but we're going to keep working on this.
Yeah. Okay, so when we decided we were going to film this video, I went onto a couple of different RV Facebook groups. And I asked, I kind of told them who we are and what we're doing. And I asked them if they had any questions about their RV ovens. So I thought I would ask you a couple of these questions.
Hit me.
So this person says, my oven temperature never seems right, which we just learned.
It's not. I guarantee you it's not.
Can you recalibrate it?
Maybe, but probably not. So I'm not exactly sure the mechanism that these work on. It looks like there might be a capillary tube with some fluid in there, and it would be really, really fiddly to recalibrate it.
So we just have to learn it.
Use that thermometer. It's $5. You can get a digital one too. They even have battery-operated remote ones that, if you want to get really precise, like if you're trying to do something very, very accurate, you can do that. But I'll tell you, no matter how accurate, based on what we saw, no matter how accurate you get that temperature, it's going to vary inside the box, right? I mean, just look at the pattern that we got. You get a cold corner versus the hot middle. There's a big temperature difference there.
Also, if you get it perfect and then you put in a frozen TV dinner, it's going to drop.
It drops before it recovers, yes. So, yeah, you need to figure out how far off your oven is from the set point temperature, and then use that as your guide. And don't put the dial to whatever your recipe says. Put the dial to whatever it needs to be to make the actual oven temperature what your recipe says.
Okay. Many people say you need a pizza stone in order to bake without burning in an RV oven. Is that true?
Maybe.
We're planning on doing a pizza stone centric video. So as you can tell,
without burning is tough. We've done a lot of cooking now over the 2 months that we've had it. So we're not, some people have had their RV ovens for 10, 15 years. We haven't. But in the time that we've made a lot of different things with no pizza stone. We do have one for future tests, but we haven't used it yet. And we haven't burned anything except for our bread today as part of our experiment.
Yeah. In fact, in some regards, it's not hot enough.
We have to kick the dial up way over the temperature. I'm wondering if a pizza
stone would help it get hot enough, almost.
Well, it's funny. The pizza stone might work in one of two ways. And we'll talk about this some more in the video. But it might be insulating, and it might be distributing.
Like, might be conducting or something?
Yeah, well, distributing the heat, yeah.
Okay.
Like taking that intense strip and then spreading it out over the area of the stone. So we're going to do some experiments to try and identify which of those it's really working on. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there who have put the pizza stone in, and the pizza stone has helped them. It's tough to say exactly what helped them means, and I'm sure a lot of you will, if you guys watch, you'll hopefully comment and let us know what you found the pizza stone to do if you have one.
So we have a lot of pizza stone questions, and we will definitely be
we'll dig into the pizza stone. So, hopefully this has been informative and fun for you all.
Yeah, if you're watching this right around the time that it goes live, it's leading into the holidays of 2021. So hopefully this can help you with your holiday baking and cooking. If you have more questions or things we didn't answer or things that you'd like us to address on the oven front, let us know. I can't guarantee we'll get another one of these oven videos out during this holiday season, but in the new year, I think we definitely will film at least one, if not two more of these oven like test and experiment videos.
Yeah.
If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It definitely helps us with our channel. We post most Fridays. As we are traveling, we live full time in this kitchen, it feels like. So you can follow us along here if you subscribe every Friday. And we hope you guys have a great holiday season, whatever holidays you're celebrating this time of year. And we will see you guys, not next Friday, because we are taking Thanksgiving off. If you're watching this real time, we're taking Thanksgiving weekend off. But we will see you guys soon with more videos. Thank you for watching.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Today and not tomorrow.